Hey everyone, it's Pojo. One last little vacation filler. This one I wanted to talk about player feedback and player communities. We are all people who play Eternal, and sometimes we participate on the Reddit, and sometimes we participate on YouTube, and we all have various ideas about how the game should be, how the game should be designed, sort of how we feel about it, and oftentimes we have to express those ideas, or at least want to express those ideas, and attempt to make the game better. That is definitely like useful information on occasion. Like, it is very good to have feedback from players if you are a designer. If you have multiple data points that say that a card is making someone feel bad, then you're more likely to change that card, especially if statistics and just general evaluations of the card back that up, or if you're able to identify a particular problem with it that can be fixed. Player feedback directs developer attention and can be extremely useful. It can also be highly toxic. Developers from many different companies have reported a lot of really difficult and hard to read feedback that is, generally amounting to death threats and horrifying and generally very rude, abusive, toxic behavior that has chased people away from development and also just isn't very helpful. Something that you should understand if you are invested in giving good feedback, but invested in feedback in general, invested in your opinions being listened to, is that when you take a hostile approach to a topic, people are more likely to be hostile in return. That someone reading a piece of feedback that is very aggressively oriented and like basically just says that you think that the developers are idiots for including this, or that like basically you have to change this now, or else bad things, or like just being toxic in general, the response is less likely to be in your favor, even if it is very vehement. In fact, it's more likely to solidify opinions against you, and this is just like a thing that happens on a subconscious level. I think that like good developers are definitely capable of separating the information from the bile on occasion, but also that for any human being, if the bile stacks up enough, it will affect the quality of the work. And if you're talking to developers, as if you are talking to anyone on the internet, you should treat them as human beings. So, yeah, this came about because I was thinking a lot about a game development video on whether or not player game developers should listen to negative feedback, and I really liked it. I think I'll post it in the description below, but I also was thinking a lot about it from the opposite side, which is how do you give negative feedback while still basically having a positive influence on the game that you are playing. And so that's something interesting that I thought that we could talk about a little bit. So yeah, like the key things are to not become too invested in whatever your feedback is. If your feedback is not taken, that's not an indication of like anything wrong with you. It might just be like, it's just something that like can happen. It doesn't mean that you need to be more vehement about it or anything along those lines. A lot of times, like, players can note issues, and those issues might exist for reasons that maybe aren't understood by some players but are understood by other players, or that aren't understood by all players but are understood by the developers as necessities of the coding or necessities of the design of the game. I think one of the very common ones is that you will very frequently see Mark Rosewater online defending Magic's power system, which is also a frequently maligned function of Eternal. I'm not going to go into the defenses of it, but suffice to say there are reasons for it to exist, reasons for it not to exist, and in general this game is designed around this power system. And there are both pros and cons to using it, and to many extents, like developers tested with and played with this sort of idea until they came about with what they thought was the best game. Not only the best game like for gamers, but also the best game for them, because they wanted to make a game that they were passionate about and so they made a game that they were passionate about, and there may be elements to that that you simply cannot change. So that's number one, is sort of accept that some feedback may not be used, but giving it is still helpful for like making the changes that can be made to without fundamentally like diluting what it is that made the game what it is in the first place. Number two is to separate your observations from your solutions or evaluations. Like fundamentally, like there are going to be things about a particular card, for example, that may end up like making you very unhappy. So for example, if you see a lot of Jack right now on the ladder, and every time that you see it you feel very angry and frustrated, that's a good note. If a card makes you angry and frustrated, that's definitely something that you can passively observe upon. You can say, hey, whenever I see this card, I find myself becoming frustrated. But it is different from saying that, like, if this card is from like saying that this is how this card needs to be changed. Like, for example, like many people will propose different solutions to how to solve a particular problem card. They will say, you need to take down the health on this, or you need to take down the mana on this. Now, these are all good, these can all be good suggestions, but in the end, it will generally be up to the developer to decide best how to address the problem. What is probably going to be the most useful data point for them is what the reaction is to the card, and not necessarily the exact solution to fix it, because there are going to be a lot of different options, and most likely that's going to be something that developers arrive at through testing and through sort of basically just determining what feels best for themselves. Development is a process. It takes a lot of time and energy and work, and like, yeah, it's something that like you can definitely do by backseat gaming and occasionally even create like really useful information as a result. But like backseat development, players always have a lot of good a phrase that I have heard is that like players will often have very, very good ideas of what in a game is broken and very, very bad ideas of how to fix it. That's not to say that there isn't a lot of fun to be had in trying to fix it anyways. I, for one, love to design cards myself and sort of like play around with different ideas and say, ooh, I would really like to see it done this way. I would really like to see it done that way. I believe we did that in a previous video even. But at the same time, those solutions may not be precisely what is implemented, and it's important to say both what you think the problem is and what you think the solution should be, and to separate those two in your mind, because there may end up being a different solution, and you may end up having to be satisfied with it, since changes are not made for everyone, or nor for the particular benefit of someone who's defending their particular solution. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is how to file a bug. I'm a tester in my general sort of job. So yeah, my day job is as a tester, and generally when you are filing a bug, good things to do are to describe what's going on in the bug and describe how to reproduce it. If you can do those two things effectively, it's far more likely that that bug will get fixed. So for example, we recently noticed that when you are receiving the end of month's rewards and you click the chest, you then get to, I'm not going to type all this out because that's going to take a while, but like when you're receiving the end of month rewards and you click a chest, you get like a little flashy animation that plays, and if you continue to click on the expedition draft points, it'll flash constantly. So like basically you can just repeat that flash over and over again. So describe the bug, then if you want to, below, describe the steps to reproduce it. So in this case, the description of the bug actually shows what the steps to reproduce it are. But with those two things, a QA tester can very easily go reproduce the bug using those steps, identify it, and then probably identify how to fix it. And so just a useful function if you're giving like feedback through the main screen, which, by the way, the feedback menu is in the main screen. So you can just do this and provide any feedback you like. There's a general feedback, a bug report, a card feedback, and a suggestion. I was asking developer friend about this once. I asked them sort of what good advice was for people who are giving commentary, and the response I got back was both very funny and very sad. And it was, I think I still have it here. Yeah, my main request for players giving feedback would be, please tell me to die of cancer less often. So yeah, if you're giving bad feedback, be better. Negative feedback can be given positively, and learning to separate your observations from your desires and your opinions can be really helpful in changing the games that you're in for the better. That's it for me for today. I realize that many to possibly all of you are very good about this already, but I thought it would be good to give a little reminder. And thank you so much for watching. My name is Pojo, and I am on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Patreon. Thanks again. See you next time.